and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show with Seahawks Brendon Nelson. Welcome back on in, Brendon.
Thank you, Brandon, for having me back on.
It's great to have you back in the house here. Of course, if you guys are just new on the channel, we got new subscribers here lately. Me and Brendon do this every week. Him on my channel. Next week I'll be over on his channel. We just kind of like to get going back and forth, kind of a meeting of minds a little bit here, and seeing if we can kind of further along a little bit the discussion and drive forward a little bit. And in the name of driving forward, as we often do, we like to unpack here, even when we've got to unpack the bad. And very often, Brendon, this year, unfortunately, we have not been able to celebrate and get excited. Unfortunately, we've been unpacking the bad. And once again, this past week against the Chicago Bears, we are given a nasty loss at home. We have, I think, 2-5 right now at home, a losing record. We don't look anywhere near, say nothing of dominant, even almost like a road game right now. You had fans throwing snowballs on the field after the game, which is I know it's rare that it snows here, but it's rare you get the Seahawks fans doing crazy New Jersey fans type stuff. I would think, so let me get your thoughts. I'm very interested to see where you kind of lie now. You've had a few days to sort of sit on this one a little bit beyond just your initial reaction. What do you take away from this game? Is what stands out to you in it?
Well, this Seahawks team has found a lot of different ways to lose games this year, but this one felt kind of new. It was a game where honestly the team did a lot of positive things, I think. We saw a lot of things that I think that even with the loss we can be kind of happy about. We ran the ball great. Our running game was, I don't know if I would call it dominant, but it was a great running game. The Bears' run defense is not great, but I would take what we did against any team in the league. So the running game was good. The offensive line overall was okay, I think. They were decent. I can't expect too much more from them. Defensively, we stopped the run great. We got a little bit of a pass rush going. The pass rush was pretty on point that whole game, I think. And the thing was, despite all these positive things that we did, we found a way to lose. And that would be a little more understandable against a good team like maybe last week, the Rams game. But this is a Bears team with their third string quarterback, no Khalil Mack, no Allen Robinson, I think no Akeem Hicks either, by the way. Those arguably are their three best players. That might really be their three best players. So that Bears team that you're playing is arguably one of the worst teams in the league, maybe right at the bottom with the teams like the Texans and our opponent this week, the Lions. So to find a way to lose that game, it takes real, in a way, it's hard to lose a game like that where you control the line of scrimmage on both sides. I feel like we won the line of scrimmage on both sides. And we didn't turn the ball over. We didn't force any turnovers, but we didn't have any turnovers ourselves. You would expect to win that game pretty much always knowing those things. And now we are that team that has found a way to lose. So that's my main takeaway from that. Just a few things went just wrong enough for us to still find a way to lose that game.
It's sort of, to your point, it's been a bit of a theme this year where that hasn't been the theme in years past, where you always kind of found a way, and this way you're going the opposite direction with it a little bit in your approach, and it always seems to change a little bit to a degree. Where do you stand on? And it's not all on his fault in this game. I'm not putting it on him. The defense kind of collapsing underneath itself a little bit. The end sucked, but where are you with Russell Wilson on this game, as far as what you thought about how he played?
Yeah, we're kind of in the same spot where we were last week, where I'm looking at a team that played well enough to win overall. Not that everybody played great, right? Like, Jason Myers missed a makeable field goal. I thought Bobby Wagner and Ugo Amadi played awful. I thought both those guys played some of their worst games as Seahawks. But overall, the team plays well enough to win, and then you get this with Russell Wilson, where he doesn't play a terrible game, but there's a lot of meat left on that bone. There were points that he left out there, point blank, period. I can think about some of the plays that he didn't make. And the thing was, that game started out pretty good, I think. On our, I think, second touchdown drive, there were two plays on that drive where we had third and short, and Wilson found Everett for the first down. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is the stuff I wanted to see all season. All right. Okay, he's just getting the ball out of his hands quickly, making a decisive throw, and keeping the drive alive. And that drive resulted in a touchdown. And I was like, okay. And then we come out of halftime. We get the ball. We start the ball. We start our possession at like midfield. Might have been in Bears territory. First possession of the third quarter. And first down, Wilson throws a shot play to Tyler Lockett in tight double coverage. Should have been picked off. And I almost want to leave the room at that point. I just kind of want to leave the room and not watch the rest of the game because it's just so demoralizing to see him go back to that at that point. And from that point on, he left more meat on the bone. There was the 3rd and 4 to Metcalf where he had a wide open Metcalf for a first down and just overthrows him by 3 yards. He had the obviously we had the ball inside the 10-yard line on 3rd and goal, and then he takes a big sack to force the field goal to be 39 yards instead of 26 yards. You had a couple other I think we got into field goal range on our next drive, and then we went backwards. And I believe on the 3rd down, he had Metcalf for a touchdown and just didn't even look his way. And yeah, the defense blows the game at the end. And I'll have words for the defense later. But that never becomes a concern if Wilson plays a good game, not even a great game. He just needs to make the easy plays that are right in front of him. So yeah, I'm looking at it again and going, yeah, this is another game where the team played well enough to win. And your $35 million quarterback found a way to make enough bad plays to lose it, and that doesn't need to be happening.
Do you give this room to him as far as rope for the fact that he's injured, or do you think that this goes beyond injury?
I don't think I can really call it the injury anymore. He's played well enough in a couple of games to where I just feel like if it was the injury, we would be seeing him making these bad throws and these bad decisions in every game, and we're not. He played a very clean game against the Niners, very clean game against the Texans. And that injury should be either 100 or like 98% healed at this point. We remember the original timetable for that injury was 7-8 weeks. We're past that point. We are past that point. And I know he was playing through it, and I know that couldn't have helped. But at a certain point, I don't think you can give him that anymore because some of this stuff is decision making. Yeah, okay, like the overthrow to Metcalf on 3rd and 4. That maybe could be the finger. It's possible. But I can't give him the finger or well, okay, that came out wrong. Okay. I can't give him credit for playing through the broken finger when he's again taking another shot play to Tyler Lockett in double coverage. Tyler Lockett is not Calvin Johnson. We know this. Yeah. Wilson should know exactly what Lockett is more than anybody in the universe because I don't think anybody, probably Tyler Lockett's dad might be the only guy who's thrown more passes to Tyler Lockett than Russell Wilson has at this point.
Facts.
Like he's not he's not Calvin Johnson. He's not going to go up and get that pass. And you almost could have made like a sports movie with the clip of him throwing the ball to Lockett in double coverage in this game and him doing the exact same thing against Green Bay. It could have been like a scene where like it keeps flashing back and forth between this play and that play. And you're like, wow, those plays, it's almost like, it's like poetry. They rhyme.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me to get past because this season was supposed to be about getting away from that stuff. And he's not.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with everything you obviously said on this. We always come back to, for me on this and the way we were to look at this season, because we knew that we weren't maybe going to get what we might get in year 2 of the offensive coordinator next year, as far as the real returns. We wanted to see growth and development, to know that Russell could handle this new offense. And he shows these flashes. The first half, to your point, I thought he was solid, very solid in the first half, even beyond just the touchdown passes, but just, completing the 3rd downs, going into it. But we see this again and again in every game, from just go down the line where it always slides back in the old, let me go deep now. Let me go chuck it deep. I had a stat I posted on my Twitter today that showed, I'm sure you've seen this as well, Brendon, about the most double teamed receivers on the outside in the NFL this year. And you've got right now, Devontae Adams is number 1 with 27.5% of his snaps. He's double teamed or has help coverage. It's not always a pure double team. Some is just help. DK Metcalf is 1% below him, 26.5%. Now, also, though, interesting, Brendon, Tyler Metcalf's like 5th or 6th on that list, about 23%. So what teams are doing, what I take away from this is You're getting the cover 2 high shell at the highest rate in the NFL. We see single high safeties at the lowest rate in the entire NFL. It's hard to double team 2 receivers on the outside, but if you have 2 receivers on the outside, you first have them with the cornerback at the line of scrimmage, carrying the receiver up with the safeties over the top to bracket. This opens the door to then allow you to double team, so even a soft double team, Brendon, right? Now, where does that leave openings though? To the rest of the field underneath and an intermediate. And to me, that's where you then have to attack. The defense can't cover everything, especially when they're doubling two guys when they're at that kind of rate.
Yeah, yeah, and we see it on the all-22. Gerald Everett gets open a lot more than he gets the ball. Gerald Everett is in situations to take advantage of this, and he did do that some in this game. Gerald Everett played a really good game. He had the touchdown. He had multiple third down conversions. Like, Gerald Everett played really good, but we've seen these other games too where he's constantly the guy who probably should get the ball thrown his way, and he's just not. So you can see where that double team should be adding something to this offense, and all too often it's not. And like, if for some reason that played a lock in the Bears game that I'm talking about, if for some reason that's literally the only route on that play, then at that point just throw it out of bounds. Only bad things are going to happen. You can't throw the ball to Tyler Lockett in double coverage like that and expect anything good to happen ever. The only really good thing that can happen there is he draws a flag, but it's far more likely the ball gets intercepted. And that was a kill shot drive. We are up 17-7. If we score, really, I'd say any points on that drive, I think the Bears might start being like, here we go again. All right, time to roll over.
Yeah.
And you're in great position to do that. And looking at a play like that discourages me. What it kind of makes me think of is, do you remember the safety, Roy Williams? He played for the Cowboys for a long time. He was a Bengal. Well, he's the guy who invented like the horse collar rule, right? He used to grab players by the back of their jersey, pull them down, and eventually they made that illegal because people kept breaking their ankles.
Yeah.
I think Roy Williams broke 4 ankles. And after they made it illegal, he kept doing it and eventually got to the point where he started to get suspended and stuff. And I remember back when this was happening, I was listening to a couple of Cowboys video makers on YouTube who they were talking about it. They were talking, why does this guy keep doing it? And they were basically saying, when a player gets into a little bit of an awkward spot, they go back to their strength. They go back to whatever their greatest strength is. They just fall back on it almost as a reflex. And Roy Williams, his greatest strength was his hands. He had big, strong hands, and he kept wanting to just use them to grab to try to get himself out of trouble because that was his greatest asset as a player. And maybe that's what's going on with Wilson, where whenever he gets kind of panics a little bit, he just thinks deep ball, deep ball, deep ball, because that's his greatest strength as a player. He's got one of the best deep balls in NFL history. Maybe that's the only way I can put it, where he just kind of panics and goes, I'm going to fall back on what's always gotten me out of trouble here. And like Roy Williams not being able to do that anymore because it's illegal, Wilson can't do it anymore because teams are catching on to what he's doing.
Well, and I think we've got a donation with Dr. Von Wiggles, who actually is touching on my follow-up question with this, Brendon. So thank you, Dr. Von. We're on like the same, because I want to push this forward on your thoughts on this, Brendon. Thank you for the $5 donation, Dr. Von Wiggles. He says, Wilson's good, or just start new. And to piggyback off this, Brendon, to your point on that now, okay, we have 2 games left. You and I are in, I'm sure, agreement. We can't take a whole lot away from this next 2 games. We've had to basically make our determination as what we've seen up until this point. Or if I'm the front office or I'm coach, whoever's making the determination is going to have had made it at this point. Next 2 games aren't really going to adjust that. If what you're saying is correct, I hearken to guess that Roy Williams was never really anywhere near as good a player moving on forward once he had no more of the horse collar. And he was kind of just a hitter anyway. He wasn't really much of as the game moved to more of needing the safeties who could cover and less of the guys who could come up in space and decleat dudes. He kind of fell away as well. But if that's the case, is Russell Wilson fixable? Do you feel confident moving into this future to say, okay, yeah, it's still bad right now, but there's still this is just us getting through the bouncy road of this to get him finally in line and in lockstep? And thank you again, Dr. Von Wiggles, for the donation. You're awesome.
Well, I'm certainly not confident. It's possible. Of course, it's possible. We've seen this happen before. The first year with Aaron Rodgers under Matt LaFleur, things were not that good. And then the second year, Rodgers was the greatest quarterback of all time again. He might win back to back MVPs under that LaFleur offense. Kyle Shanahan, first year in Atlanta, not very good at all. They were below average offense. Next year, they were the best offense in the league, probably. But I don't have a ton of confidence in it. And the main reason why would just be because I didn't see a progression. I would say that Wilson's best game this year was the first game against the Colts. And by the way, that's a good Colts team. We're finding out about them at this point. Like, that's a good team. They may make the playoffs. They have a pretty good defense. That game, winning that game handily is no joke. That's a real result.
Yeah.
So I just didn't see the growth. If anything, I saw regression, because after he came back from the finger injury, and the finger injury may have something to do with this, but after he came back, it was worse than ever. He was playing like Joe Flacco, the only quarterback I can think of who was just, constantly playing chuck it football. I think in recent times, the greatest example I can think of would be Joe Flacco. So I don't have a lot of confidence in it. I admit that it's totally possible. And I do on some level understand why some Seahawks fans are not willing to walk away from this until they know with 100% certainty that it cannot be fixed.
Yes.
But by the time we find that out, it's going to be too late to get anything for him, because by the time we figure it out, everyone else will have figured it out. So it's not there's a cost to that.
Right.
And that's what I'm concerned about.
To press you a little further on this, Brendon, just to kind of get you on, you're in charge. You're making the decision making, not Schneider, not Carroll. It's you. And you've seen what you've seen up until this point. You've got to make that determination. You've got to decide. And do you feel ballsy enough to throw it on the line and say, I think it'll get worked out. I'm going to give it an offensive line. I'm going to give him another receiver on the outside to throw to. We'll get the running back core back to front. Do you make that call?
I have been pretty firm lately. Ever since really Wilson came back from the injury, I've been pretty firm in the belief that I think we are better served to move on from Wilson. I haven't really been moved off that, even when he played some good games.
Yeah.
And again, the reasons why I would move off Wilson have often had very little to do with Wilson. It has to do with the situation this team finds itself into, where we're going to need to do all this stuff. We don't have a ton of stuff to work with here. We know, for whatever reason, it seems like big-time free agents don't really want to come here right now. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's a Pete thing, a John thing, a Wilson thing, a weather thing, a geography thing. I don't know. A money thing. But I feel like the team is better served going in a different direction at this point. I would probably go for that way. And I wouldn't really cling on to all that much. I would just blow the whole thing up. I feel like another soft rebuild. I don't want to do another one of those. I'm willing to go through a couple bad years. I'm willing to do a Philadelphia 76ers and trust the process for a little bit and be bad for a couple years if I think it'll produce Super Bowl caliber teams down the line. But yeah, I feel like I've seen what I need to see.
And I think, just not to speak for you too much on this, Brendon, but it's not too that you're not thinking that Wilson is good. Still, it is that he's good. It's that there's more at play than just making this decision in a vacuum. We've got to bring in all the factors at play, including, to your point on this, the current state of the team, the current ability of us to put this team back together again moving forward. And you have to factor that into this decision making as well, that goes beyond just he's an amazing quarterback and he's been with us for years. He's a Hall of Famer and bop it bop. Especially if we're trying to, if the true goal is to try to get us back to being an elite franchise again. Did I catch that right? Is that about?
Yeah, that's true. I don't know about Wilson at this point. I don't know if he's capable of doing some of the things that he's going to need to do in order to run this offense. I don't know. Yeah. It's possible that he will pick it up next year. It's possible that he's just always going to be this guy. I mean, it's becoming a little snippy in these press conferences with him sometimes. It almost seems like he's really trying to push back on what his coaches are indicating that he should be doing. Yes. I'm sure you're aware of it. Like we had that press conference with Carroll right after the game where he said Wilson needs to get rid of the ball on that third down, where he took a 13-yard sack that forced a longer field goal. He one guy in my stream said he almost sounded like a parent of a 40-year-old kid who still lives at home and is still smoking weed all day. He just sounds so exhausted and tired of having to say these same things over and over again, and this guy just won't get it right. And then Wilson comes out and says, "No, we were already in field goal range. I did the right thing on that play."
Yeah.
And I don't know who you side with there. Everybody's going to feel differently about that. Some people are going to say, "I agree with Pete." Some people are going to say, "I agree with Russ." That's not the point. The point is these guys are on completely different pages.
They are on different pages, but can we also just to say, because I've seen breakdowns on this play. I've watched a few people talk about this play. It's probably the keynote play of the game. And I think, can make a determination on this of who's right and who's wrong. We can make a determination on that because the quarterback has got to be, as he's called, the coach on the football field. You have to be aware of where you are on the football field and what you need to do on any given play, in any given scenario. 2-minute warning, 1 minute and 30 seconds left. I've got one timeout. I've got no timeouts. You have to at all times be aware of that on top of just the play you're calling and executing the play. It's hard. That's why they are what they are. He's on a 3-step drop, Brendon. 1, 2, 3. On a 3-step drop, the ball has to be out of your hands. In fact, I would reckon that they've called that play call, Brendon, rather than a 5-step drop or rather than a 7-step drop. They're calling that play, in my opinion, because of the fact they don't want to risk a sack on the play. Wilson knows this. This has been talked about through the week. It's not a shocker to him in that moment. He goes back on the 3rd-step drop. Watch Dwayne Brown why you get so mad, Brendon, because when you're a left tackle on that play, you're usually going to go into your kick step and you're going to get to the arc where you're going to meet the defensive end, right? The contact happens a couple yards off of the line of scrimmage when it's in a throwing, when the quarterback's passing. You watch Dwayne Brown, he gets his hands on the defender instantaneously in space there because he's trying to keep him for if he leaps, punish the leapers. Because the guy who's going to leap, if it's a 3-step drop, you're throwing a quick out, right? Throwing a quick slant. So you're going to throw it at a low trajectory. So the guy's going to try to leap up instead of going to his pass rush sometimes. So the tackle's got to be there to push him down, knock him over. So you punish him. It's called punish the leapers. And what happens with that, though, is now Dwayne's getting early contact on him. This then allows the defender to slip around his outside shoulder because the contact's a little earlier than you would normally want to do it with the offensive lineman. Russ knows all of this stuff, doesn't get rid of the ball, and then drops back and loses space. And he does it on top of the fact that you're playing in a windy stadium with snow there for like once every 10 years we actually get snow in there. Wilson's got to be aware of those factors. And I can't go to that, well, it could be this and it could be that. It's very precise on this, from how it was called to how it was coached throughout the week. I'm not saying that everything is horrible with Wilson, but on that particular play, there was a reason you saw Dwayne Brown stomping mad after the play, where he was gesturing. And I mean, it wasn't just because of he was angry he lost his block, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Dwayne Brown has had a lot of grievances with his teammates this year, man. I mean, that's like, he's turning into the grumpy old man right in front of our eyes. He's like, Kyle Fuller, you got to get the snap off at the right time, or Wilson, you got to do this, you got to do that. He's like constantly just like going at people after these plays. It would be funny if it wasn't happening to my team, honestly. But yeah, I think it's very clear. I mean, even though we were in field goal range on that play, even after the sack, it's still a terrible sack where he's just kind of looks like a rookie out there. He's just like shuffling around in the pocket. It's like, do something at that point. Run forward to make sure you don't lose that many yards. Throw it away, whatever. Like, anything's better than a sack. There's nothing good about taking a sack in that spot. And I understand that Myers should make the field goal anyway, but kicking in this league is random, and it's windy, it's snowing. Don't make life harder for him. He's having a bad year.
Bingo. Myers has had an amazing year. I mean, this should be a little in the back of your mind. I'm not asking him to put it at the forefront, but to understand, okay, 3-step drop. Why is Waldron calling this? He wants me to get the ball out. We talked about this on Wednesday. Okay. And then I know we are in field goal range, but if I take a sack 12 yards, that puts this back to like a 40, 45 yarder in the wind, in the snow. It's going to be kind of tough on Myers too. Process, then get the line of scrimmage. And that, to me, that's got to be in your quarterback's mind. He has to handle that load. The offensive coordinator needs to be in his ear and remind him at the hey, remember here, 3-step drop, get that ball out, man. You got to get that ball out. But Russell can't come back then later, Brendon, and say, we were still in field goal range. He can't say that there. He's got to own that in the mistake of what it is. It is a 3-step drop. I need to get the ball out of my hands. That's my mistake. I tried to make something happen. Done. Then it's done. Then everybody moves on. Then there is no us having further discussion. He's owning it and going it. But this whole, well, I mean, I did kind of hold the ball too long, but sometimes good things happen when I hold the ball too long.
Yeah. And this is not the first time this has happened. Remember after the Titans game, and on this one I actually kind of disagreed with Pete, but Pete said in overtime, I wish Wilson had taken a check down instead of trying to throw it deep on first down in overtime. And then Wilson was like, nah, that ain't me. No, I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a problem with what Wilson did on that particular play, but still, it just shows you that these guys are not on the same page. And I think that, you know, lately I've been having a lot of streams on my channel, and over again, the sentiment that I see from Seahawks fans is just that I think Wilson has a relatively low football IQ. That's the way
Yeah.
people are putting it right now. And this isn't just one or two people saying this. This is a lot of people saying this. And it's getting a little bit harder to disagree with that, I think, because we should be seeing some growth in this offense. If anything, he's gone backwards.
Yes.
So yeah, I feel like I've seen what I need to see.
Yeah, and I hate it because I come off sounding like I'm hating on him. I'm not trying to hate on him. It's just these kind of plays that come up, and it's not going to get fixed. This has been a common theme for me, and this is in regards. We'll push this forward to Carroll a little bit. Brendon, is you don't fix mistakes if you don't ever accept that there's a problem at play, right? If you just everything's always sunshine and roses. If everything's always just we're right around the corner from it being amazing. If it's always that rather than well, let's actually take firm stock of what is. Do you ever really end up fixing the issue?
Apparently not. Apparently not. I mean, we've kind of been hanging around here now. Granted, this is our first bad season in a while, and I made a video addressing that point. Like, this is not just about one bad season. Believe me, if we had won the Super Bowl last year, I wouldn't be calling for anybody's heads because of one bad year. I'd just be like, well, that sucks. Anyway, we won the Super Bowl last year. I'm cool for a minute. I'll be okay. If we had made the Super Bowl last year, I would be okay with it. But that's not what happened.
Yeah, same. It's the circumstances of these last 5 years, or if you called it the sort of soft rebuild that took place in 2018, where you moved 2 new coordinators in, you were out from the rest of the remaining portion of the Legion of Boom at that point. You had the opportunity through whole hog to decide however you wanted to push this thing forward to re-envision it with Wilson at the helm, and this is where we've landed now 4 years later. Let's talk a little bit about Coach Carroll a little bit, because he's had some things to say here after his press conference, I think with the 710 and in his presser, just in regards to a few of his statements, and those being that they're pointing towards, for instance, him saying, you know, I don't foresee us having to do a rebuild. We have our philosophy, or the foundation of our philosophy, in place. I have been in constant communication with Jody Allen, and we're in lockstep in what we're doing here. To me, these don't indicate with the words of a man who's been told he's going to get fired. Do you think at this point, or do you think he's just glomming that up and he's just doing the old Carroll again, everything's sunshine and roses?
Well, I'm sure if you had asked Urban Meyer 2 minutes before he got fired, he would have said that he had the full confidence of the Jacksonville Jaguars organization. So at a certain point, you do have to say these guys can't really say anything else. If Pete were to say anything else, he would be acknowledging that he completely screwed up. And he's not going to do that. I wouldn't expect him to do that. I'm even okay with him not doing that. That being said, we have always known throughout all of our discussions on your channel and my channel and through all the videos we make, we've always known it was possible that Carroll was going to be back next year, no matter how much we didn't like it. Yeah. So to hear something like that, it's disappointing, but I can't exactly call it surprising. And as for his comments about Jody Allen, again, I would wonder what else is he going to say? Is he supposed to say, oh, no, Jody Allen completely disagrees with me. I'm definitely going to get fired in 2 weeks. Please, please accept my resume for working on ESPN or whatever. He's not going to say that. So I don't know if I totally believe it, but it may very well be the direction this team goes. And if you take him at his word, then the only big change that can be made would be to move on from Wilson, because if Pete is staying, John is probably staying. Mm-hmm. So you've got your head coach, you've got your GM. The only other big change you can make is at quarterback, because I don't think moving on from Bobby Wagner is the big change that can be made after a season like this. Like, oh, we're going to blame this whole season on Bobby Wagner? No, that doesn't make any sense. What is that? So that does seem to be the way things are headed. And I'm not too happy about that. I am not the president of the Russell Wilson fan club right now, but I know who I would choose if given the choice between the 70-year-old head coach with a 1980s philosophy and a quarterback who was a fringe MVP candidate 4 years in a row before this one.
Yeah. Amen. I mean, amen there, effing men to that. I'd be in the same boat with it, and it's disconcerting to me too. I hope I'm wrong on this, Brendan. It's not just I get that itchy feeling in it twinges in my gut. My bottom of my gut twinges a little bit, and I go, something with this it doesn't stay. I feel like again, if you send them, and maybe I'm wrong on it because you're right. There's been guys that have been you mentioned before, of course, Schottenheimer too is another guy that have been blindsided. That have been guys are under multi-year contracts, and hey, you're out now. You're here today, you're gone tomorrow, and it can take simply just a flip of the switch to get a guy sent out. But I do wonder if they show him a little more respect to this particular coach with his history here, and that if he was to be gone, and I think you and I both agree that whoever's on this committee that's determining whatever to Jody Allen, they've probably made pretty much their determination about what they're going to do as far as moving on from Carroll or keeping him. And if that's the case, I would think that there would be some indicator, and where I wouldn't expect him to come out and just straight say, "Look, I'm about to get my ass fired. I'm looking for a job, Jacksonville. What's up?" I rather than it going to that spot of things, I just always land at he would at least be more tempered down, I think, in saying, look, we're going to analyze things where it's at after the season. We'll see where this goes. We want to take a little bit of time to just make sure we're looking at what has truly gone wrong here so we can get it fixed and be more, maybe a little more. And maybe I'm just, again, driving on this because we don't know. It's not anything for sure that he's coming back. But I agree with you, too. If he does come back, it probably means Russell goes. Would you think it's hard to predict, but and we're not going to get into the moves they would make necessarily. Do you foresee him doing it kind of like Belichick did when he moved on from Brady at that point, where he goes, okay, first year that he goes long, I got to clear stuff out, and then we'll come back to this in 2023? Or do you think him in his grand hubris to believe that he could come back and get this thing back going, cooking by even next year?
I would take the year off. I would do the Belichick thing. I would just say, okay, 2022 is going to be whatever. Let's get some young pieces in here, figure out what can stick going forward. We honestly, if you go forward with Carroll, we do have a lot of pieces on this team that I'm really interested to see next year. Sidney Jones, who played another pretty good game, despite being thrown into a really crappy situation with no DJ Reed. Jake Curhan, he played another good game. I don't think there's any stopping him now at this point from being the de facto starter. Like, that dude is just playing too well. I can't run from it anymore. And I'm a little scared about it, but it's also really cool.
I know. It's a little exciting. Like, oh, there's no safety net here, but I'm kind of liking it. I agree. But again, tonight, man, he even PFF liked him too, Brendon.
Yeah.
Like, it was the eye test and PFF both. Like, gosh, every time he comes out and he performs with it. That's amazing.
Yeah, but I do feel like that year you would go like, okay, let's just get Ryan Fitzpatrick or Teddy Bridgewater, and let's try to build everything else first. Let's build the defense, build the offensive line, make sure all this stuff is good to go, and then we try to go get our quarterback. I don't know who that would be. I don't know who would be available at that point. I know that next year's QB draft is supposed to be a little better than this one. I will say this. A lot of my stream viewers are in love with Malik Willis right now. I don't know too much about him personally, but a lot of my viewers are in love with that guy. So if we got him, a lot of my viewers would be excited about that. But I personally would not draft a quarterback this time around. I would not try to find the next great QB. Maybe you can take a flyer on a guy like a Jalen Hurts and see if maybe he can become a good passer all of a sudden, which he won't. But we can pretend that he will. And I would, at that point, I think you would have to be willing to live with another bad season to see what's up in 2023.
Who of our guys that we have bubbling, and I saw you did a video about, who you keep and who you leaving, just without the parameters of salary, give me a stay or go. So let me give you a couple names. Just give me a quick stay or go here. And not even think about salary. You're not like, you bring back Rashad Penny. It's not going to be for a big cost, right? We know it's going to be like a 1-year prove it deal. So Rashad Penny.
Well, I'm going to just admit I'm completely indifferent, but I guess if you're knowing that the money's going to be cheap, sure. Okay. Bring him back.
Dunlap.
You may as well keep. I'm buying him for, I would say, yeah. Bring him back.
Rasheem Green, 3 years, 18 million, 9 million guaranteed.
Oh, I have no interest in Rasheem Green for anything more
Thank
than
you.
like the vet minimum.
Appreciate
No
that.
interest. No
Thank
interest.
You. Thank you. Well,
I'll give him the vet. I'll give him the vet minimum.
Let's keep him. Let's keep that one on live because we're going to be getting the bottom pit. 8 sacks this year, man. He's finally. Let's get him. No more of Rasheem. I'm good.
PFF still hates him, by the way. They gave him a grade of like 51 this year,
rightfully
which
so.
is hilarious.
It's the totality of all of his plays. It's in between. He's always this flash play guy where when he shows you it, it looks great. And he tricks you into thinking that he can replicate that again and again. And it's actually something you just see in flashes rather than consistently down the line. And in my opinion, he's been particularly bad in the run game this year. I think he gets blown out of his gap. We lose his contain on that side at times. And it kind of annoys me. Sidney Jones.
I'm in. I'm on Sidney.
Obviously a cheap deal on that one. 1 year, 3 million, 1 million, similar to what would be a penny deal. Multi-year deal. Let's go 4 years, 25 million for DJ Reed.
Oh boy, that's not bad. That is not a bad per year. I might do that, especially if you can backload it, which you probably could. He's not Champ Bailey. He's not Deion Sanders. He's not going to get some monster deal somewhere else. I would probably do it at that price. 4 years, 25. Let's do it.
And even then, at that point, you have Trey Brown is cheap. Sidney Jones comes back on the cheap 1 year deal. And though you're putting a little bit of money to DJ Reed, overall in the load balance game of how you're building your positional groups as it pertains to the salary cap, corner position still then very cheap, especially if you bring in another rookie or two on top of that to sort of stack the group up. So I'm with you on all those moves. So I'm the same kind of place. I think it'd be an interesting way to go to look at those guys and bringing them back. And with a couple of them too, I think Dunlap in particular, just you end up eating too much money anyway. It's not really a huge gain by moving off of them.
Yeah. Oh, I was thinking about this. That whole idea of coaches getting blindsided. Do you remember when the Buccaneers fired Tony Dungy? Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Yeah, he actually had to be escorted out of the facility by security. He was
God.
so upset and shocked. I remember reading about this after it happened. He actually had to be escorted out of the facility by security. It was that bad. So it does happen sometimes. It doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah. And Dungy was a pretty revered guy, I think, even at that time, obviously. So to do it, that guy who's so nice and so I mean, it wasn't like he's one of those. He's just been wearing everybody's asses out with chewing them out and stuff. He's a good guy. Like everyone likes Tony. So it's about, and again, you might be right on this. I mean, maybe it's in the best interest of them to not let this out. I mean, especially if you had something else in conjunction. I mean, what if they had some backdoor deal with Sean Payton or something, to bring him in after you, and you didn't want to, you're trying to keep things under wraps. So who knows? We never know where it goes. And this thing is still, I think, ultimately, Brendon, a fluid situation.
Yeah. Well, and one more thing about the Pete Carroll thing. Okay. What if, and I've thought about this scenario in recent days, what if you bring back Carroll as head coach, but you tell him you are stripping him of all his personnel powers, and either Schneider takes over or you bring in a new GM, and you basically tell Carroll that, okay, you can stay, but you have no GM powers at all. You're just a head coach. Obviously, you can give your opinion, but know that at the end of the day, the personnel decisions are going to be made by this guy. Mm-hmm. Would you be okay with that? Because to me, Carroll, the GM, is worse than Carroll, the head coach.
Mm-hmm. As always, I look for the baseline of it happening in the past to see if there's some success off of it to make a better determination. And we don't have to look any further than our own recent past. Mike Holmgren went through this exact same situation. He was the general manager and the head coach. He made a lot of draft selections he didn't give a crap, really not give a crap, but let's say he minimized character, right? This is the guy that brought Josh Gordon into Cleveland as well. He's not a big guy worrying about off the field stuff when he's picking people. So then they started to pull those things away from him. And that allowed him at that point to be able to then just concentrate on coaching. And then Ruskell came in there and was able to do a couple last things. But there was even a bridge to Ruskell. They had one guy before they got to Ruskell. So even the guy who initially took over, the only thing with that, Brendon, I like it. Yes, I like it as an idea. The only thing with it, though, is how does the dynamic work where for 10 years, he's had say over the top of John Schneider. And now suddenly John Schneider is going to be, his de facto superior in for all intents and purposes. Whereas, with Holmgren, when you had him go out of the general managership, you brought in an outside guy to then be the general manager. And that's the one thing I would wonder about that dynamic at that point.
Well, what if John goes and then you do bring in that outsider GM, like a guy
Yeah.
some people are talking about is a Lewis Riddick? I think that's possible as well. I'm just trying to find a way where Carroll stays and I can be okay
Mhm.
with it because that does look like the direction we're going
I,
because
yeah.
it looks like it's happening.
I guess that's what I would be saying with it is that I would like to see that be the other thing that goes in conjunction with that is that you have to go to the new general manager because I just can't buy. I've had this guy as my boss for 10 years, and then now I'm going to take over and be over him. I don't. It feels like it'd get weird. You know what I mean? And that you've already established this relationship between the two of them, and it's like there's no way to really. I'm referencing a lot the Beatles documentary. I don't know if you saw it yet, but like
I'm going to.
there's this whole thing with George Harrison and Paul McCartney, and Harrison's a year and a half younger than him going back to grade school. And so he was always this kid little brother through the band's period. And as they get along through the end, Harrison's now wanting to write his own songs. He's wanting to have a little more say. He doesn't want Paul to tell him how to do the solos. He's like, I got, I know what I'm doing. And it's hard for George. You can feel it in him in this doc to wrestle that control over because it's already been established the baseline of the relationship. And I think that would be a little bit in play there, but I love the idea of it.
Yeah. It's like in Goodfellas when Billy Bats gets out of prison, he knows Joe Pesci is the guy who shined his shoes. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter if he's
that's right.
way above that now. He's still to him. He's still the guy that shined his shoes.
Yeah.
So
You,
yeah, you see that all the time.
Yeah, you get stuck in this thing and people see you a certain way and that you're trapped at it and there's nothing. So I think you get Lewis Riddick would be great. He already has familiarity with the Seahawks organization. I think he'd have some interest. He'd also have some good insider stuff of having been here as a scout before to understand maybe where the dynamic had gone wrong to cause some of the bad decision making. So it would be maybe interesting, from that standpoint, to bring him in. We got a quick little dono here, Brendon. Thank you, Randall McDaniel, coming in with a $5 donation. Thank you, Randall. Big dono on the channel. Says Wilson to the Dolphins, 2 1s, 2 2s, a 3+ Tua, cheap gap quarterback with upside. He's got those big hands. I've been on a thing lately with Brendon. If you get a smaller quarterback, you do want the bigger hands.
Yeah,
Thank you,
well,
Randall.
he's got big hands, but he doesn't have a big arm. It seems like he doesn't put a lot of zip on those balls, which I'm not in love with. And I liked Tua coming out of college, but I'm just not seeing it at this point.
Yeah, and I don't know too. That's a lot. 2 1s, 2 2s, a 3 and Tua might be a bit more than the Dolphins are willing to offer. Though I still do maintain on this, Brendan. This is another thing we can kind of talk real quick about is I don't buy in that the Russell Wilson's destroyed his value at this point. I'm still saying he's going to get 3 first-round picks. There's a couple of reasons that this happens. I may be proven wrong on this. This is my bold prediction for it, but I'm going to stand on this. I'm going to kind of die on this hill a little bit because I just can't understand how people can't quite see. Do you have as hard a time of seeing how he gets the 3 first-round picks or why it comes down as it does?
I still lean that way because it is going to kind of be a seller's market this offseason,
Mhm.
right? Because this draft is not great. And Deshaun Watson, I think he's probably not going to be on the table right now. So if you don't have a franchise QB and you want one, then Russ is kind of your only option. I mean, who's other than Russ? Who else could you get? Rodgers, who, by the way, might stay in Green Bay at this point. He might retire. He's talking about that. He's going to be 40. Like other than that, who's the next best quarterback you could get?
Watson?
Well, yeah, now I'm saying Watson's off the
Yeah,
table
yeah.
because of his
Oh,
legal
yeah, yeah, yeah.
issues.
No, there is nothing better.
Yeah, there's like Jalen Hurts, maybe, and maybe not even that. Maybe he's not even on the table. Maybe you're really looking at trying to pull like do what the Saints did and try to pull Drew Brees out of retirement. Like
Yeah.
by the way, I found that hilarious that they actually tried to do that. That was great. That would have been fun. That would have been fun. One last game in the Superdome.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he turned
But
him down.
yeah. But anyway, the point is that if you're a team that feels like you're a quarterback away, then you're gonna overpay for that. And overpaying is okay if it results in you winning a Super Bowl. So if you're a team like the Eagles, and I don't know if the Eagles think this, but if they think they're a quarterback away from competing, then you'll be like, yeah, get these picks out of here. What can I do with these picks? No, I want a quarterback. I want a guy who I know can be really good. So even if he's not worth 3 first rounders, I think he will get 3 first rounders because all you need is one team that goes, I just need a quarterback. I don't care how I get it. Give me, whatever it takes.
Mhm.
And there's going to be that team in all likelihood. And then you have teams like the Giants that haven't been good in 10 years. They're going to be desperate. They're going to be like, we're losing our fans. I mean, did you see the Giants Cowboys game a couple weeks ago? The stadium is 90% Cowboys fans.
Yeah.
That fan
Oh,
base
yeah.
is completely checked out.
Totally.
So they will be like, okay, whatever it takes, let's move heaven and earth to get Russell Wilson in here just to sell tickets.
Agreed. That's that extra factor I think that people got to factor in. You mentioned the Eagles and the Giants, two of the teams I think that sit at the head of that line. Multiple first round picks in the upcoming draft. Both coach and general manager on both teams are under a hot seat right now and trying to save their job. And a trade like this could very well do that for both of those two parties.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure the Rams knew they were overpaying like crazy for Stafford when they did that trade, but they decided, you know what, this is what it takes for us to win a Super Bowl. If we win a Super Bowl, it's worth it.
Yeah, that's it. And they'll talk themselves into it, Brendon. And it takes just one. It just takes one. Everything you said is exactly right. It's what's available. It's the lack of draft picks that are out there. It's that Wilson, even with some of the recent drop off in play, is still pretty clean compared to what Rodgers is going to be 40. Watching with all that baggage, he doesn't carry any of that stuff. So I think at the end of the day, we'll draw it out to be that value when it's all said and done. We've got a really kind donation here from Jacob Kessinger. Appreciate you, Jacob. He says, this is for both of you. Just keep up the good work. Definitely needing this content and deep dive speculation in such a down year. One can only hope the future of the Hawks is better than this garbage. Well, thank you so much, Jacob. I'll Venmo over or something, Brendon, $10. But I appreciate you.
Save it and send it next time we stream on my channel or something or
There you
whatever.
go. There you go, Jacob.
Don't worry about it,
Either way.
Jacob. You're good. You're good.
But thank you. You're awesome, Jacob. And yeah, me and Brendon, hey, look, even in bad seasons, we still love doing this. We still love talking about this stuff. This is what tickles our mind as far as, just getting into the deep dive on this type of stuff. So appreciate that, man. I really do appreciate it. And so we feel like we got kind of an understanding, I think, with where maybe Carroll's here, maybe not. Wilson's here. I think we talked enough about what we'd like to see happen here. We won't get into the details on kind of the off-season moves. I think we want to do some more setting up and preparing on that stuff. So we each have kind of our own little ideas kind of put forth of this is what I'd like to do or whatever. And like you said, maybe in a couple weeks we can kind of go down that trek of things. Is there anything kind of as far as standing out to you as well, a little bit with this team right now that just is maybe a random item, be a guy that in their play or something that strikes you maybe a little odd or funny with this team right now?
Nothing that we haven't already gone into. There is some stuff that I am really hanging on to for these next 2 weeks because now completely eliminated from the playoffs, you got to find something to hold your interest, right?
Right.
Got to try to find something. And I am interested to see what Jay Curhan does. I would love it if we could bench Dwayne Brown and play Stone Forsythe. I know it's not going to happen, but I would love to see that. Even though I think Dwayne Brown has been put in a bad situation this year, he's still not playing that well. He's not going to be here next year. I hope not anyway. I really hope not. Yeah. So I would love to see Stone Forsythe. It really, I guess one of the weird things, and we've talked about this before, but it really does frustrate me that Carroll is sticking to this mentality that I don't want to just play young guys for the sake of playing young guys, as if there is any other reason to even be playing this game right now.
Yeah.
Like what is the value of giving snaps to Dwayne Brown? And honestly, no disrespect to him, but thank God Adrian Peterson went on IR, or else we'd probably be playing him over the next couple games as well.
Yeah.
So at least now we get to take a look at DJ Dallas, who, by the way, I think played pretty well against the Bears. He did some decent things. I kind of feel like he could be part of a running back rotation going forward. He could be like your number 3 or number 4 guy. That's valuable. That has value. So I like that. But I just hope he can get on the field the next 2 weeks so we can actually see him.
He's really impressed me this year. I don't know from your standpoint. I knew he's a converted receiver. I knew he could do some stuff as a third down back. His running between the tackles has really taken a step forward this year versus last year, where it was sad at times. You have a guy get a single arm on him as he's running through the hole, and it would just pull him right down to the ground instantaneously. This year, he's really pushing the pile, driving forward. If there's 3 yards there, he'll get you 5. It's one of those things where he's always getting you more than what is actually there. But I've been really impressed by his play. Has that stood out to you too, with just his ability in running?
Yeah, that he's catching passes out of the backfield. I think he had 4 catches against the Bears. I think he had 5 against Washington. I don't know if he'll ever be a great third down back because he doesn't block yet, but if he ever picks that up, then that's a very valuable asset that's basically all Travis Homer does, and Travis Homer has a niche in the NFL. So if DJ Dallas can pick that up, that's great for him. So yeah, I'm liking a lot of the things that I see with DJ Dallas. It's not anything that makes me feel like he can ever be a starter in the NFL, but he looks like he belongs, and sometimes that's all you need. Not every player on your team is going to be an all-pro. Even the 2013 Seahawks had plenty of Jags. They had some Jags. You can't build the whole team out of Jags, but you can have a few. And I'm keeping an eye on that. Obviously, Penny, getting to see him play like this, I'm happy for him. I've never been a big Rashad Penny fan, but it's not like I dislike him personally or something. So it feels good to see him actually grinding out there right now. Jordan Brooks, who even a couple months ago, I kind of felt like I already knew what that guy was. Now I'm not so sure. Maybe that guy does have a Pro Bowl ceiling because he's been playing really well lately for the most part. So there are some cool things to keep an eye on these next 2 games, but most of it is just because this team is bad enough to where you need to try to find something, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's exactly right. You're looking for any spark you can in this darkness. Do you think I was going to ask you a little bit about lessons learned a little bit, right? Because we harp on that a lot about lessons we should learn. And this is a little bit in regards to your point, DJ Dallas. Our running back room for about 4 or 5 straight years has been decimated every single year. And that maybe we need to look into this offseason. And when we get into the preseason, you hear people in your chat, my chat say, let's trade this running back here and let's get rid of this, that we understand moving forward that we really do need to stack up our running back room, that whether we like it or not, for whatever reason, it's going to get beat down, narrowed down, and that we got to go past just guy 1 and guy 2 and think of it more through the lens of guy 3 and 4 on top of that. Would you tend to agree with that as sort of a lesson kind of learned in how to build roster as far as with just dealing what we've recently come, or do you think we've just been snake bit?
Well, if you're going to keep Rashad Penny around, then you really have to make sure you stack that running back room really nicely because he's not going to play the whole season. But also, to your point, it shouldn't be that hard to find competent running backs. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
You just have to go out there and get them and groom them and put them in your in your system and get them playing competently. You don't need everyone to be a Derrick Henry, but it should not be that hard to stack your running back room. I do think that we kind of got unlucky these last few years because we did find a legitimately really good running back. He just so happens to be, Chris Carson, who now his career is over. So when the number 1 and number 2 running backs on your team are Chris Carson and Rashad Penny, then you kind of fall in love with their talent to the point where you try to pretend like they're not delicate, but they are.
Yeah.
And at this point, now that we're probably moving on from Carson, right? I don't think he's going to play football again. I really don't. I don't believe it. Now you have a chance to say, okay, we really need to seriously remake this. We can be done with the Carson thing. We don't have to weigh the pros of his ability versus the cons of his inability to stay healthy. Now we can move on from that. It should be a reasonably high priority this offseason to address the running back room. And I would do that. I would stack it with 4 capable players for sure.
Here's another one. Do you think we've learned a lesson at this point that you don't pay kickers?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of a no-brainer to me. I think we've all kind of been aware of that for a while now, where kicking from year to year is just too random. So why pay $4 million for a kicker when you can pay $1 million for a kicker and get the same roll of the dice that you would have anyway? Mm-hmm. So yeah, we'll talk more about this in the future. I actually have some ideas for things we can do when the offseason starts.
All right,
but Myers, we save $4 million if we cut him. I think that's a no-brainer. And you can pretty much go get anybody. I understand that us rolling the dice with Blair Walsh got us into a lot of trouble a few years ago, but there is some validity to the idea of just go find the cheapest guy you can who has a big enough leg to make 50-yarders and just hope it goes your way. because at the end of the day, unless you get a Justin Tucker, you're kind of just rolling the dice anyway.
And those are few and far between. Those are they're just a handful, maybe at the best case in the NFL of those kind of guys. Well, we'll hold off a little bit on that. Let's draw this forward a little bit to this week. I know it doesn't really matter that much. Is there anything we've talked a little bit, obviously, about DJ Dallas and Penny, and see what Jordan Brooks' ascent can take? I agree with you. And this has been my long-term sort of prediction. It was even on the draft night prediction of Jordan Brooks. It wasn't a matter of that he didn't have really some high ceiling at the middle linebacker position. It was just that it was going to take 3 years to get him over there. And for a first round pick, that's the part that really most got stuck. And you're going to play him out of position for the first 2 years. And he's going to look heavily reduced in that position as he's waiting in the wings. And that was really where my main worry with him, because he'll look even better once you get him to middle than he's looked here at the will. Then he's into his natural spot and the coverage stuff starts to go down a little bit. You think the team is definitely moving on from Bobby?
I would be extremely disappointed if we didn't. I mean, I love Bobby, of course, but there is no way you can pay him $20 million next year. And honestly, even if it wasn't for the money, if you are going to spend a first-round draft pick on a guy like a Jordan Brooks, you have to get him into his natural position so we can find out what he is in time to where we can make a decision on that fifth-year option. Because I think you have to do the fifth-year option after year 3, if I recall correctly.
It is 1 year ahead. You're right, where it's like one more year ahead. You don't get to make the call in that year as you're leading into the 5th year. You have to make the determination the year before. You're right.
Yeah. So if we go into that decision having only seen Jordan Brooks play outside linebacker, that's a disaster, because then you don't really know what you have. Mm-hmm. It's like this would be even worse than what we did with Ethan Posick, where we didn't know what we had with Ethan Posick until year 4 because we never played him at center. Now, at least there, you didn't have to worry about that 5th-year option. But now that we do, we really need a full year with a Jordan Brooks at middle linebacker, which is why I've said before that, honestly, I don't know if I want Bobby back at any price. I don't know if I want Bobby back at $5 million or $4 million, because I need to see Jordan Brooks play middle linebacker. And I feel like we've already kind of learned the lesson about playing players out of position. I don't want to bring back Bobby and make him play outside. Like that sounds like a mess.
Yeah, and that was going to be my follow-up question. So I'm glad you addressed that, was whether or not you would, if you go to him and you restructure him, if that's but I'm glad to hear you're like that. I'm kind of at the same point. I want the $16.75 million in savings at this point, and I want that better utilized in other spots on this team. Offensive line and defensive line for me, or especially if Carroll is remaining, and most especially if he's remaining, those become my 2 hot button, high priority spots for me to really. And because you don't have a lot of draft capital with outside of absent moving Wilson to build the team in that way, utilizing those resources for that rather than the middle linebacker.
Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like last year should be a good lesson for a lot of Seahawks fans, where our defense was historically bad to start the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Wagner. And then the defense suddenly started playing good. Like, it was like a borderline top 5 defense at the end of the year. What happened was you brought in Carlos Dunlap and Jamal Adams came back from his injury. Those 2 things were the catalyst. It wasn't Bobby Wagner. So that should tell you that even though Bobby Wagner is a great player, he doesn't have the impact that some people think that he does on actually making your defense play at a high level.
Right. And this is a little bit, and this is going to bend over to the next guy I want to talk about, but this is a little bit of why there's certain positions in the NFL that are devalued, that don't get necessarily having, what have we had? We've had the CJ Mosley contract. We've had the Fred Warner contract. We've had the Bobby Wagner contract. Who else has gotten paid at the middle over the last few years? I mean, there's probably a couple of guys up, but it's much like with safety. It's very hard for those guys to get paid because the NFL is telling you there with that, we don't value that position that much. We can kind of get by on that position. It's not something that's going to have as much impact as, let's say, as having good down 4 linemen in a 4-3 defense. And the guy that I want to talk about this and well as this to go over this, because there's another devalued position, is Quandre Diggs. Because I'm sure as you're getting a lot in your chat, we've got to sign him now. We got to sign him now. There's just no way you let him walk now. There's no way you let Quandre walk, dude. You can't do that. I let him walk. Where do you stand on this?
I think I kind of have to agree with that, because we've just put too much money into that position already. And I know that kind of sounds like making another bad decision on top of the bad decision that you already made, but I just can't put that much money into the safety position. And even though I know that he has failed to replace Earl Thomas in the past when he tried to do it with Tedrick Thompson, and it really didn't work. Pete Carroll is a defensive back guru. At a certain point, don't you have to go to him and be like, okay, we're going to give you some chicken, you know what, you need to make chicken salad with it.
Mm-hmm.
You need to find another guy who can do this job. You can't just start paying everybody. I mean, it made a little bit of sense during the Legion of Boom because those guys were all-time greats. Like Richard Sherman is the defining cornerback of his generation. Earl Thomas is maybe the defining safety of his generation, either him or Polamalu, I guess.
Right.
And honestly, Earl came kind of after Polamalu, so maybe they didn't even really intersect. But
you might be right though. No, you might be right on this because Earl's not he's outside of the Ed Reed Polamalu. He's in sort of the next phase after those guys are out. He might be looked upon as that free safety of his generation.
Yeah, so it kind of, I was okay with paying those guys because they were so special. But now that we're talking more about like the DJ Reed level of player and the Quandre Diggs level of players, these guys who are good, I need to pull back a little bit on spending so much money here. Let's spend some money at the places that you aren't good at to try to like the offensive line, a place where it really seems like sometimes we don't know what we're doing. Let's make the problem go away by throwing a lot of money at it. And you go find another free safety who can do the job that Quandre Diggs does, who can protect the deep zones. So I think that Quandre should probably walk. Or you franchise tag him and trade him or whatever. It does suck to lose him for nothing, but I'm not interested in giving that guy a bunch of money.
Yeah. And we had Bradley McDougall, by the way, played both strong and free for us. And he did all right for us as well, no, without having to pay him, just to your point on this, without having to pay him a significant portion of money as well. I think Diggs has been a very, very good player, multi-Pro Bowler here. We've been very surprised at how good he's been, but it's none of these are choices, again, that just like with the Wilson decision, it doesn't get just decided on he's a good player, we pay him. It's got to be decided on what's really best for the team and in roster building and managing out the rest of the team. And the thing I was trying to say last night on this to try to really bring this to a crystallized picture, Brendon, is do you want Quandre Diggs going into his 30-year-old season or you want Joe Thuney at left guard? What's more attractive there? The left guard who helps change that offensive line or the free safety? And I just on your point, just to hammer this one more time, yes, we paid both safeties at that time, but that was for a number one rated defense for 4 straight seasons. You had a reason to go outside the norm, and there's no team in the NFL right now paying both of their safeties top money. Not a one. Well, they might pay one guy, but you can bet your bottom dollar they're going cheap to the other side if they're paying that one guy. That's just the nature of the beast, the lay of the land. All right, so this Detroit game, is this a win? I'm not going to ask you for a prediction, but do we just continue? Is the team in a spirally here, or are they going to lose another game at home to the Lions? Or are we going to be really talking about that this offseason?
Well, I think we're getting a Boyle. We're not going to be getting Jared Goff, so we don't get to meet our old buddy. It looks like they're going to go with their backup quarterback. That looks like Goff is going to be out, which makes things a little more interesting. Goff has not played terrible for them.
No.
I do think I expect to win at this point. This is a very below average receiver core that he's going to be working with, Boyle. I think that this Lions team, they're better than their record. And I'll say this. I was more concerned about this game than I was the Bears game. So now that we've lost that Bears game, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, guys. Okay, I know we're bad, but are we that bad? But with Goff out, I kind of expect to I kind of expect to win. Yeah. I'm just going to leave it at that. This Lions defense ranks near the bottom of the league in most categories, and with their backup quarterback in, I can't imagine this team losing. It does occur to me that losing a game like this to a team like this might change some perspectives in our ownership group. But I don't know. For the decision may have already been made independent of what we do these next 2 games. So I'm not saying we should root for a loss, but it does occur to me that there might be some of that going on there.
And I would hope, I mean, it could be enough to be like, you guys lost the Lions at home now after like that might be enough. I would sure hope they may have enough that they have seen here, enough tape to see here, enough a feel for you got fans booing from the first to the fourth quarter in the Cardinals. You haven't thrown snowballs in this game. You got obviously you're not the fanship is not galvanized right now with the current direction of the ship. Do you think nibbling kneecap Campbell is the answer there for Detroit long term?
Uh, I kind of feel like that kind of stuff doesn't really work as well as it seems like it would. Those guys who are a little too fiery and animated. Like, I remember Mike Singletary, the head coach. I think his first game ever as a head coach, he pulls his pants down in the locker room to try to get his team fired up. It's like, okay, that sounds impressive, but I don't think a good head coach would ever conduct themselves like that. Like Bill Belichick would never pull his pants down and moon his players.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like that kind of stuff doesn't fly as well as some of these people think that it does.
No, I don't. I agree with you. But you got to give him credit to your point. They're better than the record, and he's kept them playing hard when they really have no business playing hard. I mean, they lost some stuff this offseason from not just Stafford to Marvin Jones, and you had the Kenny Galladay leaving, and the defense didn't have a lot. And Jared Davis, their middle linebacker, went out the door. They had to do, he's kind of coming in, cupboard's bare, and I've been impressed with you. You look at that versus what Urban Meyer did with Jacksonville, and I think you get appreciation for it. But I do wonder, to your point, how long can it last with that, that frothing out the mouth mindset of things. Well, we'll see how it goes this week. I think we'll win this game. I do. No Goff, especially because Goff has had our number a little bit. And to your point, he's had a very Goff-like year this year. He's playing proficient, not amazing, he's boringly Goff in how he plays. 2-to-1 interception ratio. He'll throw for like 25 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, and that's his year. Any other things you can kind of think about? Anything you want to talk about on this? Just kind of moving forward. Any other little random thoughts?
I don't know. I kind of feel like we've beaten all this stuff into the ground with the team being officially eliminated from the playoffs. I think a lot of people are just over this season. I mean, we just spent 3 minutes talking about this Lions game. That's really about all we can muster. And we're people. We're not just the 3 hour a week fans. We are people who digest everything. But I'm pretty over this season, and I think a lot of my viewers are as well. We're going to continue to grind it out, but I am interested to see this offseason because you got to believe that something significant is going to happen. And if this team does indeed lose this weekend to the Lions, I would hope that changes some of their perspectives, like I said. But I don't know. I don't know what else to say about this team other than what we've already said. There is some exciting stuff to watch for. We've seen some players really announce themselves as being worthy of being part of the team going forward. That's always fun. But other than that, I said this last week, I'll say it again. I've seen what I need to see from Wilson. If he plays amazing against the Lions and Cardinals, then so be it. But it's not really gonna have me believing that, he suddenly figured this out. So
yeah, I think you and I are both in this holding pattern. A little bit of there needs to be another shoe dropping. We expect the shoe to drop, and then once the shoe drops, we kind of can. Okay, now we're going where we're going to go. We know where this path and this thing is now headed. But I think there's still a very much a question mark, a little bit at play, as to how this is going to go. Over the next couple of weeks.
All right, so kind of thinking about some of the things that we can do when this off season starts. I had a couple ideas for shows that we could do. We can spend a couple minutes talking about that, I guess. I was thinking maybe right after the season ends, we could start by going back and forth on how we would rank our positional needs. Like, how much do we need this? How much do we need that? And, we would maybe alternate on positions. Like we would start a quarterback, go to running back, and then wide receiver. And we would just kind of see where we agree, where we disagree. We might have a discussion about where we disagree, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about another show. Maybe we could discuss who we would cut to save money or trade to save money. We could take a look at the dead money that we have if we get rid of a player, look at the cap hit, and discuss whether or not we think it's worth it to move on from that player. I also think we should probably do a show where we look at our outgoing free agents. So to those of you guys in the audience right now, these are some of the things you might be able to look forward to. I know there's not a lot to look forward to with this team right now, but these are just some of the ideas that I've had for ways in which we can discuss this team when the offseason starts. But how does that all sound to you?
Sounds great. I'm
Mhm.
all on board with it. I think we do a little bit of prospect breakdowns too. Maybe we get a list of just a couple guys we'll look at independently maybe before the show. Don't have to look deep into it. Just a quick
Mhm.
look and what your feeling is on it, and we could do a little bit of that as well. So it sounds awesome to me, and I would love to go down that route. I think it'll help us get a little more clarity on the direction they will take by having again the meeting of the minds a little bit on that. The one thing I forgot to ask you about that I want to ask you one last thing on is just what did you make of the Chancellor tweet and the Lynch tweet, and did you not make much of them?
Um, that was interesting. That was definitely interesting because, well, the Lynch thing I feel like is kind of like not that deep. Like Lynch just saying, "Hey, I'd like to be own part of the team. I would like to own part of the team too. Good for you." So that's cool, though. I mean, Marshawn Lynch, great Seahawk, all time, one of the all time greats, one of the good ones for sure. Would love to have him be part of the ownership group. But the way Cam put things was really interesting because Carroll came out and said, I don't think we need to change anything. I think we need a retooling. We need to move the deck chairs around on the Titanic a little bit. And don't worry, we'll get by the iceberg this time. I just need to move these deck chairs around. And then a couple hours later, Cam comes out and says that. And you're like, there has to be a connection here, right? Like, why would he tweet that now? Like, that has to be in reply in some way to what Carroll said. But knowing what we know about Cam, would he really take sides against Pete Carroll? Would he take sides against John Schneider? Or is this yet another former Seahawks player who comes out and decides to crap on Russell Wilson? It feels like it has to be one of those two.
It very much does. That was my assessment of it too, is that there's something he's saying something here pretty strong. We don't know if it's one or the other, but it is definitely being said. And the signs would not be pointing to Carroll being that still had some connections to the organizations. I mean, he just recently was helping train Marquise Blair. He was been in Ryan Neal's ear last year when Neal came in to fill in for Jamal Adams. There's still some connection between the coaching staff and Chancellor. So the theory on me would be that this is leading a little more to the Russell Wilson part of what you just said. Don't know for sure, but very interesting to say that. Somebody said in my chat the other night too that all of the Legion of Boom guys, none of them are following Russell Wilson on Instagram. I don't,
Yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
don't know if there's a
I
lot to make
actually
of
had
that.
forgotten. I had forgotten about this. Even Doug Baldwin has gone at Wilson, and that's weird too because like you have these guys who are on defense. Maybe that makes a little more sense. They would go after the quarterback. But Doug Baldwin, apparently there was. I had forgotten this had happened, but somebody brought it up the other day. Wilson was playing in the Pro Bowl, and Wilson overthrew a wide open receiver, and Doug Baldwin tweeted something about like "That's the Wilson I know," and then he quickly deleted it. And I was like. I kind of forgot about that, but it's not just the defensive guys. So there seems like there's something there.
It does. It's like they're saying something without exactly saying something at times. You know, they don't not out and out just coming out and saying it's a little bit of reading between the lines, but read between those lines you may, and there's something there. That's kind of my same takeaway with that.
Mhm.
Well, we will definitely let's coordinate Brendon offline, and we will definitely get these shows kind of put together. We got one more week next week, of course, with the Cardinal game after this one.
Mhm.
Won't be a lot on it, but then I think definitely we start engaging that stuff and getting into it. The more we can unpack with that stuff, the better. The more we can kind of pull through the trawl through and see what we can pull out in the net as far as those items of discussion. I think will help draw this forward a bit. So we'll keep pushing on that, folks. And if you guys have any ideas, do post them in the comments too. If we got anything that kind of comes up, if you guys got an idea for some good shows here in this off season. But man, Brendon, I really do love doing this, man. Every time,
Mhm.
every week. So I hope we can keep doing this going forward and keep it up, and hopefully we get to talk about brighter things kind of going forward.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop. It's a following a football team is a 365-day a year commitment, and there will always be things to talk about when we're good or bad or mediocre. So I'm here for it. Whatever the team may end up doing, I'm here for it.
Are you gonna be doing any Mariner streams or anything like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be doing some Mariner stuff. That's a big part of the plan going forward. I think right now people are more excited for the Mariners than the Seahawks, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have to do a stream game or two of the Mariners if we get a chance on do a StreamYard stream game or something if that interests people.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I know you started doing the Seahawks game streams, which I have done before. I don't do it that often because it's a pain, but
It's
yeah,
exhausting. It could be yeah, especially the post game, Brendon. By 8 hours, and you're like, oh my lord. But no, if you're down, that's also an option. So
mhm.
I'd love to do it. I'd love to do it. I'm definitely do a little Mariner stuff would be cool too. So well, awesome. Well, I will be back on Brendon's channel next Thursday. And again, if you're not subscribed to Brendon, please go over to his channel. It's Seahawks Brendon Nelson. Just go on over there, drop him a sub. He does great content over there. He's been rolling. I think you've had your best year this year, I think, as far as growth, Brendon, if I'm not mistaken. It's
Yeah,
been
it's not particularly close either.
yeah, I mean, it's been blowing up on your side of it. So really well done. We're at the end of the year here, man. That you've been doing great with it. I mean, I know how hard this stuff is. I know as well as anyone. So just keep grinding and do what you're doing, man, because it's awesome work.
Yeah, thank you, and you keep doing your work as well. It's awesome.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah, brother. Well, we'll keep pushing this forward, folks, as long as you keep watching. Thank you to all the folks, Jacob Kessinger, Randall McDaniel, and everyone else here who, I'm probably missing one guy, who donated on the channel. Really do appreciate you on that. Dr. Von Wiggles, you're awesome.
Mhm.
So appreciate you guys. You have a great night. And hey, let's go get this win against Detroit, maybe, huh? Let's go.
Yeah, why not?
Why
Yeah, go Kraken.
Go Hawks, baby. Have a good one.
Yeah, go Hawks.